moving house during the finals. Again, you guys, I've been told by many people I'm insane for trying to move during the during this. But you know what? You got to do what you got to do. And honestly, if I'm being quite frank, this chess tournament pales into comparison to what I'm having to deal with every day when I go see my grandmother. So I'm just, more importantly, I'm just grateful that I'm out here and I have a chance to see her. Hello? 1 second. Hello? Fix, sorry, you guys. Okay, I can tell you what happened. So yeah, apparently I unplugged my microphone yesterday because I went down to Santa Monica and I was probably going to check into my Airbnb and try to stream from there. So I had to bring my computer all the way back to the desert. I had to replug in my microphone, and that's why we have our issues. Anyway, hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday morning, afternoon, evening, Wednesday morning, wherever you are in the big wide world. Hope you guys are doing well. We are going to be going over the games that I played today. We're going to be doing quite a bit of analysis. Am I sure the microphone is facing the right way? I think so, but I'll try to change it. Okay, I'll try to change it. Okay. Maybe now it's better. I don't know. Okay. It was facing the wrong way. Well, as the saying goes, a true Papega here. I don't proclaim to be very smart, although at times I can be a bit of a five-head. Anyway, alright, you guys. Sorry about that. So, okay, we're going to be going over the games that I played today. My third mini-match against Dubov. As you guys know, I was leading 2-0 heading into today. Best of 5, so if I won today, it would be the end of the match. And, well, we know what happened, but I won't do that, of course. So, we're going to go through the games. I'll also take a look at some of the games that Magnus played as well, because honestly, I haven't had a chance to cover any of that stuff, so we'll be going over that as well, and then I'll probably do some Puzzle Rush. No reaction for a little bit, you guys, because I'm going to wait till I have my actual setup, which should be tomorrow evening down to Santa Monica, so until then, I'll hold off on Reddit, but make sure to post stuff on the Reddit r/Hikaru Nakamura, and I will be doing a big Reddit recap in a couple of days once I have my setup in Santa Monica. So I will be doing that. Now I have 2 days off. Yes, I do have 2 days off. However, I will also be doing a little bit of commentary tomorrow morning as well of the fourth match between Ding Loren and Magnus Carlsen. So I will be doing that as well. Thank you to I Must Be Happy for the 4 months. Happy 4 months. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much. Thank you to iOS Sipepu for the Prime. Thank you to Paradoxically for the Prime as well. Much love. Thank you so much, you guys. 16,000 subs these past 3 days. Well, before we get into the matchup, I will say, you guys, so there's certain things that are called making sacrifices, whether it's in chess, whether it's in a tournament, whatever it is. So again, you guys, I will admit that I openly saw the future, and when I lost to Danil Dubov in the final of the Lindor's Abbey tournament, I knew that would mean that I would play him in this tournament, which meant that I would beat him and guarantee myself to make a bit of extra money. Whereas if I had beat him in that final, there would have been a good chance that some horrible monster like Jan Nepomniachtchi or Anish Giri or someone far more dangerous I would have played against. Rotate so the microphone logo is facing you. Yes, it is facing me, you guys. It is facing me. Anyway, you guys, so optimal strategy 5-head. Well, I'm joking, of course, but it did work out. I made a sacrifice. I sacrificed $18,000, but in return, I did play Danil in the semifinal. I did beat him. So, because basically when I lost him in the final of Lindor's Abbey, the final match, I made $27,000 when I lost. He made $45,000. I know you guys are going to make the joke, but I cost myself $18,000. But all's well that ends well. By winning this match, it's good. All right, you guys. So we are going to be taking a look at the games I played against Danil, of course. So 1 second. All right. So, let's get going. So, first game of the match, started with the black pieces again. I started black in the first match. I had white in the first game yesterday, and today in the third match, again with the black pieces. So the game starts C4. Again, apologies you guys if the microphone is only 92.5% okay and it's not 100% like it was before. But as I said, I have most of my stuff set up in Santa Monica. I got my monitors. I got my tower set up. The problem is I'm missing a couple of, I need some HDMI to DisplayPort cables because the Dell monitors I bought, they had like the ancient dongles. It's not even HDMI, whatever it is. So I had to order stuff from Amazon with Prime. Hopefully Prime Gaming sends me those things tomorrow at a reasonable hour, and then I will try to set it up tomorrow evening. Yeah, VGA, exactly. Yes. So hopefully I get that stuff at a reasonable hour tomorrow, and we go. Can I turn the microphone down? Microphone is good. I won't accept anything less than 92.6. Yeah, VGA in 2020. I know. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. Yeah. So, all right. Anyway, okay. So let's get going. So first game, Black Pieces. You want to be stable. You want to sort of get off a good start. As you guys know, in the first match against Nil, when I played with the Black Pieces, I had a very, very bad start. Music is a little loud. Okay, I'll turn it down just one smidgen. Okay. So okay, you guys. Yeah. All right. So, as I was saying, in the first game, what you want to do is you want to be very solid, be stable, get off to a good start, especially with the Black Pieces. You don't want to end up in a situation where you end up like doing poorly. So, all right. Actually, I'm missing my water. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. I need some water too, or else I'm gonna die because it's 100 degrees in here. Wow, he has legs, exactly. Yeah, actually, joking aside, it is, I believe, 103 degrees outside right now, so it is extremely hot. That is not a joke at all. So it is quite hot. It is extremely hot outside. I'm lucky I'm going to Santa Monica because it's gonna be, it's I think getting up to 110 or 111 in the next couple of days. So yeah, it's pretty rough. I'm not in Santa Monica right now. I'm in the Mojave Desert, so it's only gonna get worse. So yeah, looking good. You lost weight, thanks. I mean, quarantine. You know what quarantine does? It makes you have to like cook and be like an actual human. You can't just go out and eat your fancy food every day. So yeah. All right, you guys. So let's get going. So Daniil opens with c4. I wasn't really sure what he would do. As you guys know, and when you're playing a match format, it's a lot different. A lot of it is psychology, trying to figure out. I order takeout every day. No, I have not been doing that down here. Definitely not. Anyway, Daniil opened with d4, and in the first day, he was playing a lot of this Nimzo Indian, this knight f3 and bishop g5. So I had looked at that after the match, and he kind of went away from that. Yesterday, he played a little bit of the English. He still played he played English, and then he also played e4, e5. He played this Vienna in the last game. So when you think about the match psychology, what you want to do is every match after the games, you're thinking, okay, what did they do? What can I improve upon going forward? And so obviously, I was ready for the Nimzo India because Daniil had played it on the first day. He had also played e4, which I was somewhat ready for. I wasn't 100% expecting it. And then also he had played the English, so I felt pretty good. So anyway, Daniil plays c4, e5, knight 3, knight f6, knight 3, knight 6, g3, d5. We play this pretty standard open English defense. And Daniil plays b3, which is what Ding Liren played against me in one of the previous events. So I go rook e8. Music is kind of distracting. I think the music is good right now. If you guys want me to turn off the music, I can. But I think the music is good. Let me make sure. I think the music is fine. There we go. Okay. Okay. So, all right. So Daniil plays this b3 bishop b2 idea instead of the more traditional ideas. Normally, white plays for a3 and b4, or he plays like d3 bishop e3 rook c1. Those are generally the most traditional ways of playing the open English. He plays b3 bishop b2, a new age kind of idea. Play like bishop b2 rook c1 insta attack upon e5 and play right in the center instantly. So I go rook e8. He goes rook c1, and now I go bishop f8. Again, I want to remove the bishop from the center and create open lines for my rook. If he ever plays d4, I take, and the rook aims at the pawn on e2. Also here, basically the rook guards the pawn as well. So it's just very pragmatic. Get the bishop out of the center. Still keeps an eye on all the targets here. Like all the squares are still covered by the bishop on f8. So it's just a very pragmatic approach. So here, Daniil goes knight e4, and now there are a lot of ideas. White wants to go knight c5 and attack the pawn, but white also threatens to maybe make an exchange sacrifice of the rook for the knight and then capture the pawn. For example, if I make some empty moves, something like this looks very dangerous. Again, look at these knights in the center. A lot of scope. Look at these bishops both aiming down towards all these all these dark squares and light squares on both sides. So yeah, basically, white tries to play for fast development in the center, put a lot of pressure on the center, and immediately go for broke. So here I play f6, preventing this rook exchange, because if he takes the knight with the rook, he no longer wins the pawn, because I have the pawn chain from g7 to e5. So after f6, Daniil plays d3. Now, I believe knight h4 is also a move. I think Ding played knight h4 against me in a previous game, so I don't know if this is the best move. It's very interesting and very aggressive. So he plays d3, I go a5. Idea behind a5, restrict a3, b4 ideas. Also maybe push a4 and activate my rook on the a line as well. So now he goes knight c5. I play pawn to a4. Very questionable move. I don't know if it's a good move or a bad move, but basically I play a4 because the idea is that if white takes the pawn with the pawn, I trade the bishop for the knight and then I take the pawn and we get a fork of the rook and the bishop. And black should be doing completely fine, especially because of the fact that I have this nice connect 3 pawn chain in the center. So essentially here, if I can exchange these pawns and open up the line for the rook, my rook will harass the bishop on b2. Leko was saying that you look to be much more prepared than in the Lindorus Abbey final. I will say, you guys, like, one thing that is kind of nice is I've had a lot of time off. Like, I haven't, even though I've been streaming every day for you guys, as you know, I haven't had to play in these tournaments much lately. Like, I lost in the quarterfinals of the Chessable Masters, and I did not play in the last event, which was the Legends of Chess. So I actually didn't have to play the last 2 tournaments. So because of that, I feel a lot more relaxed and more refreshed than I probably would be otherwise. I work so hard while I stream every day, you guys. So I hope you enjoy the grind. So thank you so much. Thanks to everyone. Honestly, we're so close to 500,000 followers. Really, thanks to everybody. There will be some big announcements coming very soon, hopefully the next day or 2, fingers crossed. But there'll probably be some very big announcements that I can share on stream very shortly, so stay tuned for that as well. Okay, so back to back, yeah, back then I was playing every tournament. So what I would also add, you guys, let me stop the music for 1 second, sorry. And we'll do the pause chance of the game for 1 second. What I was going to say as well is you are on Ven, right? I'm not going to comment on Ven right now, but maybe. Anyway, what I was going to say is that when you're playing all these tournaments one after the other, and you're also streaming all the time, it's very difficult sort of to maintain the right balance. So what I would say is that, yeah, when I was playing all these events one after the other, at some point your mind just starts shutting down. It's very hard to play good moves because when you're just like always, your mind is everywhere and you're just playing game after game after game, you're just like, why am I playing chess? It's, I just want to like stop playing chess, especially because when you look at the last tournament that was played, the Legends of Chess, I believe all players played at least a minimum of 36 games of chess over 9 days. So everybody played 4 games of chess over 9 straight days, or 36 total games. So when you add that in, and then you add, the playoffs like semifinals and finals, the fact that everyone is just having to play game after game after game, it certainly, your energy levels get drained, your mental starts going down, and it's difficult. So all right, you guys, so let's get back to the analysis. So I played a4, gambiting a pawn. Daniil took with the knight. We trade the knights. So technically, black is down a pawn here. Even so, aren't you a bit tired from the moving and driving? I'm not tired at all, you guys. I love driving across the country. I mean, who wouldn't love driving across the country? You get to see people from all different states. You get to see who's following the rules, who's not following the rules. And it's great to expand your horizons. I don't feel tired at all. I feel great. How fast do I drive? Well, I didn't actually drive the last 2 days, but I did drive the first 27-ish hours. I drove from Sunrise, Florida to Amarillo, Texas. And I did that pretty much nonstop, more or less. So that wasn't easy, but again, I love the road. I'm used to driving. And I'm just one of those freaks of nature where I can sort of, I just feel good. I don't feel tired. I really don't. All right, so I gambit this pawn here. I go bishop e6. Now, when was my last speeding ticket? My last speeding ticket I actually got out here in California. It was when I was getting off the stupid I-14 exit to come actually to Ridgecrest, California. And I was exiting, and it was like, I think the speed limit was like 75, but on the exit it went right down to 60. So I was going like 80, and it's right on the exit, and there was a stupid cop waiting. So, it happens. Whatever. That's life. What to do? But that's the only ticket. I think I've only gotten 2 tickets in my entire life, and the previous one was maybe like 10 years ago, so it's been a long time. But all right, you guys. So let's get back to chess. So anyway, I played bishop e6. Did I bribe the cop? No, but actually, you know what, you guys? Here's a fun. My stepdad's gonna hate me for saying this, okay? But you know what? I'm gonna be real with you guys. So I'm gonna be serious. My stepdad's likes to speed a lot in New York. And he has he knows some people who are policemen, and he carries one of these cards in his wallet or whatever. It's like, you know, friend of police, or it's not called that, but you guys know what I'm talking about. They're like these cards or whatever. And he always carries this in his wallet. So if he gets stopped, like when he opens the wallet, he tries to flash the card so that when the cop sees it, they're like, oh yeah, you know, you're a friend of ours or something. So that like he won't get the same speeding ticket. I don't think it actually works, but he firmly believes in it. So yeah, I don't know if it's true or not. I think you guys know what I'm referring to. Oh, it's called a PBA card? Okay, and it never works? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not the one who carries it around, but he does, and he thinks that, like, it's, like, it shows you're a friend of the cops, so, but, yeah. Yeah. Isn't that huge corruption? Well, I'm just saying he carries it around. That doesn't mean you get off, but I don't think it works at all, but it's just funny. Getting him in legal trouble? No, you guys. No, he hasn't gotten a speeding ticket in a long time, but it's like a PBA card. And yeah, I keep one of those donation stickers on my car, and it never helped. Yeah, I don't know if it helps or it doesn't, but I know he believes in it. So yeah, whatever. Anyway, let's get back to the chess before this becomes a really weird chat. Okay, so I go bishop e6, I attack the pawn, and white's up a juicer here, but both these pawns on a2 and a4 are a little bit weak. They're both under attack. So Danilo plays knight d2, and now I play bishop takes a2. Not speeding also works, yes. So I just play bishop a2, I snap the pawn instantly, and I basically ask him what is his idea, because long term, I'm not really concerned if white takes knight, because after I gambit this pawn, I get this jumbo bishop on d5. Of course, we have another wooden shield situation where the bishop on d5 is really really good here. So Danil does not do that. He plays knight b3. So now I go rook takes pawn. Again, another free juicer. I'm not afraid of any of the fossils here. During the game when I played this, I was like, okay, if he goes knight c5, I can go rook to a7. If he eats the pawn, I take. And when he takes back with the double attack, I actually win the bishop, and then I win the other bishop. So I have 2 rooks and a bishop for 2 rooks, and I'm doing completely fine here. So I'm not worried about this fossilization. There really are no other good fossilizations with the knight. If knight d4, I can just take again. And after takes, I just take with the pawn. Again, I have a bishop and a knight for a rook, and I'm completely winning. Thank you for doing the analysis after 5. This is great for those of us that wanted to watch but have to work. Oh, well, big shout out, Michael QRS. If you're on the West Coast, especially West Coast represent. I think I'm still going to keep East Coast hours for the most part, even after all the events end. But I will try to stream a little bit later as well, do some more extended streams. So rook a1 is played, so I go rook a6. Again, white would like to do the fossil here with knight c1, double attack, hitting the bishop, and then hitting the rook on a4 all at the same time. So here I go rook a6, which I suspect in retrospect was not the best move. Maybe I should have gone rook a8. But I wasn't sure what the difference was if he still plays knight c5 like in the game and rook a2. So I'm not sure if there's a difference, but I thought, okay, I got to move the rook out of the way. And now Danil plays knight c5. Very good practical move because it's very easy for white here to get rattled. Because right now black is up 1 pawn. He has 6 pawns. White has 5 pawns. You're not really trapping the bishop here, and so it's very hard to it's very tricky in terms of what to do for white. Am I the only one having Fs? Oh, no, I might have dropped some frames there. Yeah, I actually dropped a couple of frames there. Sorry, you guys. I'm sorry, I dropped some frames. I think we're good now. We're good again. But yeah, sorry about that. Apologies in advance. Okay, so here Danil plays knight a5. Sorry, not knight c5. It's the same concept. Now, if he was to play bishop takes c6, I cannot take the bishop because then I would lose my bishop on a2 after rook takes a2. And if I take with the pawn, he can go knight to c1. And now I have a problem because I can't move the bishop to guard the rook. And, you know, it's like a coat hanger. But what I do here, am I still dropping frames? No, I'm not dropping frames. Uh-oh. 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 Okay, No. I dropped some frames there. I saw it. I totally saw the drop of frames. 1 second. Yeah, okay, I'm fine. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm sorry, you guys, if I'm fine for now. Yeah, I'm not used to having these hiccups, though. Normally, it's like for 1 second. It's like very brief. But anyway, whatever. Let's go on. If there are issues with it, such as life, it's not Stockfish, no. California internet better get back to Florida. Well, I'm in the Mojave Desert, you guys, so there is that too. I'm not in Santa Monica right now. Okay, so here what I can do, though, is I can go queen d5, and I guard the bishop, and white can't really take advantage, because at some point I'm just going to double stack, and I'll just overprotect the bishop, and eventually move the queen and retreat with my bishop on a2 to, like, a2 to e6 or to d5. How's the sushi? Again, you guys, I've been in the Mojave Desert. I have not had sushi. The one thing I will say about being in California is that the Mexican food is 1,000 times better than the Mexican food you will have anywhere else, except maybe Texas. So the Mexican food that I've had has been just incredible. Fossilized internet, there are fossils out here. So that's actually amusingly true. So, all right. Okay, so here, Danil plays knight a5. I played rook a5. Rook takes rook. Rook takes rook, and here I played rook b5. I don't know if this is the best move. Mexican food is better in Mexico. Yes, thank you for that. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Much appreciated. So here I played rook b5, which I think in retrospect was a mistake. I actually was already feeling a little bit, I was feeling aggressive here. I was feeling aggressive. I thought maybe I'm up a juicer, I can try to win. So I wanted to actually get aggressive and try to win instead of making a draw. Because, and why am I sweating? I have my fan on. So I wanted to get aggressive here, as opposed to, I wanted to get aggressive here as opposed to just making a draw. Probably I should have just taken the rook, check, gone king h8, queen takes a2, and then something like bishop to c5, bishop b6 should be a draw. Again, white can go like queen c4 and take, and it's even material, very similar to the game, by the way. And it should be a draw, but at the time during the game, I thought, you know what? At this point, I wanted to be aggressive. I thought I wanted to go for glory and try to win the game. So I played rook b5 here. He goes bishop c3, and I go knight d4. And at this point, I was starting to feel very aggressive, and I thought I could go like c6, just be up the pawn, shut down the ideas of the sniper on g2. And if I can do that, then I think I've got a very good position. So unfortunately, Danil plays rook b2, and as soon as he played rook b2, I realized that my best friend lives in Ridgecrest. They probably work on base, then I'm assuming. And after takes, I basically have to accept, you know what? This is life. I can't play for the win. If I go c6, he takes. And after takes, he goes queen b3 with the double attack. And after king h8, queen b7, rook takes e2. After rook a1, I think it's still probably a draw with correct play, but it's a little bit dangerous. Aren't you moving to LA? Yes, I am. I put all my stuff pretty much in my Hobbit hole in Santa Monica yesterday, but there are a couple of cords I need, and my Ethernet cord also was a little bit too short, so I just came back here, and I used Amazon Prime Gaming to order a couple of cords, and tomorrow, once they arrive, I'll take the cords, I'll go back to Santa Monica, and then I'll start streaming from there. So, alright. Anyway, if this happens, white should be a little bit better here. So I didn't want to go for this, so I just decided, you know what, the simplest, safest way to make a draw is king h8, and after bishop b7, I go queen b8. He can't move the bishop because then he loses the bishop that's behind it, so he has to take. And now after queen b7, bishop e3, bishop d6, we reach a position that is, was I sweating this much during the match? No, I wasn't. I think it's just because it's gotten hotter. It's definitely hotter in here than it was earlier, and I think the fact that it's like well over 100 outside is not helping matters. So yeah, anyway, reach this position, even material, same number of pawns. But basically, it's just very drawish, because one weakness I have is a pawn on c7, but my bishop guards it. Moving house during the finals, again, you guys, I've been told by many people I'm insane for trying to move during the, during this, but you know what? You got to do what you got to do, and honestly, if I'm being quite frank, this chess tournament pales into comparison to what I'm having to deal with every day when I go see my grandmother, so I'm just, more importantly, I'm just grateful that I'm out here and I have a chance to see her. All right, so bishop e3, bishop d6, queen c2 is played. I go rook b8, rook c1, queen b2, and now we now basically just I trade the queens, and again, even material. I've got one slight weakness, but the bishop on d6 is perfectly placed to support it. So I go rook b5. I don't know if it's necessary to stop bishop c5. I mean, I probably could have played h5. Many different moves that would have drawn the game, but I just didn't want to let him exchange the exchange the bishops here. So f4 is played. I go king g8. Danilo plays king f3. I go king f7. f5 is played. I should learn Armenian if I move to LA. Funny. What I would say, however, just very briefly, I know we're doing a mix of everything, so I will say this just to be very clear. There is honestly nothing worse, in my opinion, than having relatives who are suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's. It's really like, it's just soul sucking. Like I've had relatives die before, and it's like, if they have cancer, they have something like this, it's terrible. But when you see someone who's just like can't remember anything, they're like, it's like you feel like they're not even living. Honestly, they're functioning, but they're not really living. There's honestly nothing worse in the entire world, in my opinion. Really, it's literally the worst thing ever. Hey, Scissors in the chat. How's it going? Big shout out to Scissors. He is a prominent. I believe we got this wrong when we did our ads for PogChamps 2. I think we called him a Fortnite streamer. I think he was mildly offended by that. I think he is a professional Rocket League streamer these days. So big shout out to Scissors. I probably will try to give him a lesson the next couple of days. I'll drop you a message, dude. So I'll message you on Twitter as soon as I stop my stream. So thank you once again. Big shout out to Scissors. He is playing in PogChamps 2. One of the early guys who I think could be one of the dark horses to maybe win the event. He plays Minecraft too. I think he's Rocket League and Minecraft. He's everything. A bit of variety, but I do watch his streams, and I remember when I was watching Scissors stream, maybe it was a couple weeks ago, I saw a comment in his stream by one of the people in his chat, and they said Scissors is the only guy who can play multiple games and make it entertaining like XQC does. And when I saw that comment, I actually would agree, because the few times that I've popped in and watched his stream, no matter what game he's playing, like whether it's Trackmania or Minecraft or Rocket League, it's always a lot of fun to watch. So big shout out to him. In the meantime, while we're looking, where was I? Yeah, I guess we're gonna get back to the chess. So anyway, as far as the chess goes, we're looking at this endgame. Even materials you see here, the bishop and the pawns. One advantage white has here is that this is a very advanced concept, but you'll see they're dark square bishops, and my pawns are on dark squares here, whereas white's pawns are on light squares. So that makes this a little bit tricky in the sense that after g6, g4, white can put the pawn on this h3 square, and you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns on light squares. So my bishop can never actually ever attack any of these light square pawns. So because of that, it's a little bit tricky here. So I go rook b1 again. I don't really want to trade the pawns, because if I trade the pawns, I can never touch this pawn. The bishop can never attack it, because bishop does not move like a knight, and it's very hard with the rook to sort of attack. And white can always put the king here where it can never be removed in the central spot on the board. So here I go rook b1. He goes rook c1. I play rook b4. I don't know if it's necessary. A prime example of what you don't want to do here is trade the rooks. I'm in Ridgecrest, so I'm like a short ways from Bakersfield. I'm in Kern County, so it's not the Joshua Tree area right now. So if I trade the rooks here, you'll see that again, even here after h5, h3, look at the white pawns. All the pawns are on light squares. This bishop can never attack any of these pawns, whereas I have 3 pawns on dark squares, so white's king can come up the board, and it's very, very tricky to play. Because my bishop is dead. It can't attack anything here. Like everything except for the bishop is on a light square. So I play rook b4. He goes rook c4, trying to trade off. I go rook b1. He goes bishop c1. And now I decide I can kind of wait here, because eventually when white moves the bishop, I will try to attack these pawns or go around and attack this one. In endgames, if you can attack from behind, that's always very useful, especially with rooks, because the rooks are most powerful from behind as opposed to kind of from the side or from the front, like over here. So h3 is played. At least Sagecrest has Walmart now. Yeah, but Kiba, I can't go in the Walmart because unfortunately in Kern County there are a lot of people who are not following the rules, and in Walmart most people who go into the Walmart are not wearing masks. So I don't even go in there. I literally don't even come within 10 feet of there. Not 10 feet, sorry. 10 miles or whatever. Anyway, all right, so h3, rook b1, bishop e3. Now I go rook f1. I, again, hit the king from behind. If the king moves to, like, g3, then I can just take the pawns, and I'm up one pawn. So he goes king g2. I go rook e1. Again, I have to move the rook because he's attacked, so now I attack this one. He goes here, and I attack this one. So kind of I try to keep the rook between these three squares where I'm always going to be attacking one of the white pawns, basically. So he goes back, I go here, and now he goes rook c2, ignoring the repetition. Of course, he could have gone king f2, king g2. So now I go king e7, bishop f2, and I just keep waiting with my rook. Whenever the king comes away, I'm always going to harass the king and the bishop and all of these pawns on the light squares. So he goes rook c4, I just keep waiting. Now finally Danil trades. Plays h4, I go rook h8. White's trying to create an outside passed pawn, so if White could get this position with his rook behind his passed pawn and my rook being passive in front of the pawn, it's very dangerous. So instead of allowing this pawn takes pawn, which might actually be okay, I decide, you know what, this is a match format, got to be very safe and sound, be solid, no risks, nail the drawdown, don't mess around. So I go rook h8. He takes, I go rook g8, goes king f3, and I take it. Now you'll see, even though White's pawns are on light squares, all my pawns are really harmonious. My king is going to support the pawns. The bishop supports this one. I can always bring the rook to the h file and attack very easily here. So rook c1, I go rook h6. I take the open line here on the h file. He goes king g2, I go rook g6, I go rook h6. Again, not much I can do here, but I do want to avoid any risks. So Danil goes rook g1. I go rook h3. I've never seen Hikaru more focused than this before. What I will say is that in terms of this match, and I said this before, what's important to note about this match is that I lost the final match of Lindor's Abbey, as everybody knows, to Danil Dubov on the best of 3, 2-1. And I was very upset about that match, mainly because I felt that I was not outplayed in that match. I felt that I really beat myself. There were a couple critical games that I lost with the white pieces. 2 games specifically, 1 game with white in the second match and 1 game with white in the third match, where I felt like I got better positions, and at the critical moments, instead of just bailing out and making the draw, I really kept trying to push. I kept trying to win the game, and I didn't really sort of, in a way, maybe I didn't respect Danil's technique or his ability to find certain moves. And so I really was focused that I was not going to let that happen in this set of matches, because I felt that if I didn't beat myself like that, I just stayed solid, I didn't think that he could beat me. So he goes rook h1. So we trade rooks. Now I go e4. Maybe not a necessary move. King e6 is also a draw. But after king e6, e4, maybe white can play again. Pawns on light squares. Everything's on the dark squares. And it should be a draw, but the game the game keeps going. Very 5-head. Throwing the Lindor's Abbey final game so you can crush from the Grand Tour finals. Right. Good one. So I play e4, Danil goes king g2. Maybe he can take the pawn, but I thought after c5, I've got a free runner here going straight up the board to pass pawn. I'm going to be able to cover all the critical squares because it's a dark square that queens. So instead, Danil just plays king g2, and after king g2, we essentially agree to a draw. We trade. Here I go f5. He plays gf. Not g5, because after g5, king f7. You'll notice that now I have a light square pawn versus a dark square pawn. And I'm actually going to win this pawn here. Like after d4, I go c6, or not c6, sorry, I go king g6, bishop e3, c6, and you'll notice it's a role reversal. Look at my pawns. Everything is on light squares. Now white has the pawns on the dark squares, so my bishop can touch his pawns. Well, his bishop can't attack any of my pawns at all because these are on light versus dark. So instead, Danil just trades, and we just trade everything. I just go here, and we reach the classic king versus king endgame, which is a draw. So first game of the third match, we draw this. Obviously, I was up 2-0. 2 matches to 0, best of 5. So let's go to the second game, which I played with the white pieces. So this game I played e4. Danil plays c5, knight f3, knight c6, trade, d6. And actually, okay, let's back up. So to give you guys some context, I'll give you the context. So in Lindor's Abbey tournament, I started off with winning the first match. In the second match, the first game with the white piece, I decided to play the I decided to play the Alpine Sicilian. I played c3. And I lost a very, very tough game in the or I lost a tough first game of the second match against Anil. And when I lost this game, it sort of set a bad trend because I would lose that second match, and then I lost the third match as well. So what I felt is like today again, no nonsense, no horsing around. Just play very solid, straightforward openings. No nonsense basically. So he trades, knight f6, knight c3, d6. I go bishop g5. We played the Sicilian Rouser defense again, which Daniil played on the first day. So queen d2, castles, and here I play king b1. I think we had this. Did we have this yesterday? We might have. I'm not sure. Anyway, we play the same. We play the same kind of Rouser setup here. He plays bishop e7. I play pawn to f3 again, create another pawn chain. You'll notice actually a common theme in a lot of our games is these pawn chains in the center of the board. So knight takes d4. I play queen takes d4, queen c7, and now I play pawn to h4. Supporting the bishop, also creating ideas to attack, because again, my king is on this side of the board. Black's king is probably going to the opposite side, and when kings go to opposite sides, it's all in attack mode. You try to attack. So b5 played here, and now I go queen d2. Daniil plays b4. I go knight e2. He plays a5. I go knight d4. Again, I'm trying to reroute my knight to a better square. When I get the knight here, long term, the ideas are kind of to try and attack as much as I can and put pressure on a center. So rook b8 is played. I go g4. Daniil plays h5. I take the knight. He takes. I go g5. Bishop b7. And now I play the move b3. I don't know if this is the best move. I probably should have been like a true Frenchman. Just, allez, straightforward. And played f4, f5. Just go for the throat. But one thing that I remember during this game, and this is why it's really important to play a lot of chess and study patterns, is there was this tournament in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, in 2008 that I played in when I was staying up north, and I played in this invitational tournament. And one of my good friends from Vancouver, he was actually a fan of the Rouser. He was a fan of the Rouser defense, and so I played it in one game, I think against the very famous French chess player Igor Alexandre Netaf. So I played a game with the black side, and it wasn't quite this setup, but one thing I remember from the Rouser game that I played was that at one point there was this idea that I could try to attack on the queen side with the A and B pawns, but white could always plant this bishop on c4, and it's very, very dangerous. So I tried to get fancy, very fancy with b3. Igor sounds very French. Well, I think he is actually French. I think he is French. He's also supposed to be a mobster too, by the way. And he is a grandmaster as well. So a bit of everything. So b3 is what I played. Dubov plays g6 here. I don't know if this is the best move necessarily. Queen c5 is also a move as well. But g6 is what played. So I played bishop to c4 at this point. The idea is, again, solid bishop on c4, attacking up this diagonal towards the black king. And I really want to go f4, f5, and just hit at the base, or hit at either one of these pawns in e6 or g6. So here, e5 is played. By the way, just very quickly, just one last thing I will say about that guy that's pretty funny is that, a lot of people think of chess players as being very, conservative, very reserved. And this guy, Igor Netaf, he was always wearing, gold chains. He's, wearing these, open collared Hawaiian t-shirts. And it was just a very, very strange kind of look for a grandmaster at chess. But that's what he would wear. So e5, I go knight e2 here. Bishop e6 is slayed. So we trade the bishops. I go f4 here. Daniil castle. I go rook f1. Of course, black does not take on f4 because after knight takes f4, I create a fork of the pawns in e6 and g6 here. So he castles. I go rook f1. Again, I can trade the pawns, but one thing that's worth noting is even though black has double pawns here on e6 and e5, they actually restrict my knight. My knight never has any access squares because these pawns really cover the critical squares in the center of the board. So my knight is really ugly here. So I go rook f1, queen c6, queen d3, support the pawn, but also maybe prepare a queen h3. And if black plays a move like a4, which is what I was really hoping for, I can actually just play queen h3 here, and I think I'm winning the game on the spot, because now I hit the pawn on on e6. Black can't go back because after takes, rook f1, queen f1, he's down a pawn because of the pin on the d file. So he goes rook c8, and here I miss my golden chance. I play rook d2. Horrible move. I don't know why I played this. I should have just, been more aggressive. Just played f5 and just gone all in here. So I should have played f5 here. And the idea is that basically if I hit both these pawns, but if black ever captures, now I open all these lines towards the black king. And the bishop is very passive, and there are all sorts of issues here. And you'll also notice the evaluation is epically big here for white. It's plus 1.2, which means it's better than one pawn. So I missed this chance. F5 was the best move. For some reason, I thought I could sort of just chill out and like slowly double my rooks, or go like rook d2, queen h3, do all kinds of chilly stuff, not chilly stuff, sorry. I could kind of just chill and do that. So I play rook d2, and now Danil plays d5, which I don't know if this is a terrible move. I think it's a bad move, but it's a bad move not for the reason you would think. So Danil plays pawn d5, I take, and I'm like, okay, it's a free juice, or I could just take the pawn, and I'm just winning. Unfortunately, Danil understood the structure a little bit better than I did when we reached this position, because here I should have gone f5 again and ignored the free pawn. So this is one thing that makes chess very hard, is that I just saw a free pawn. I'm like, okay, free pawn, Danil blundered a pawn, I should be winning. But after rook f4, rook d8, as I realized during the game, this becomes very tricky now because the pawns can't really be attacked. And even though I have an extra pawn here, if black can bring the bishop around and win this pawn on h4, like bishop c5 and bishop f2 and win these ones, it's going to be very hard to win these ones and get these pawns rolling. So this was an excellent concept by Danil to find this. So I played rook d8, king c1, and now after king f7, Danil offered a draw here, which actually we did not realize, I think, either of us, that there was a 40-move draw rule. So technically Danil offering a draw here was kind of illegal, and I actually forgot about the rule as well. So I took the draw because even though white is maybe better here, it's kind of hard to play. Like knight f4, there's bishop f2, knight d3, bishop g3, and the bishop is very active here. And it's kind of its tricky position. So I mean maybe I mean the game probably we both forgot the rules, but anyway, the position is pretty balanced here. White is maybe slightly better, but again, the bishop always can attack these pawns. My knight can't attack any of these four juicers, so it's quite tricky. At any rate, after king f7, we agreed to a draw, so that made the score 1-1. So let's move on to the third game. The critical third game, very epic game. So c4 played, e5. We played the same opening, this bishop b2, rook c1, and now I played bishop to f5 here. And the point is that again, in between the games, we have about 12 minutes break, and so we immediately go and talk to whoever is helping us during the match. And when I spoke to the guy who was helping me, very specifically, he told me that Danil probably would repeat this opening, and his idea would be that after f6, or not f6, sorry, bishop f8, knight e4, f6, he'd probably play his knight h4 line, which is very, very sharp. So again, in between the games, I spoke to the guy I'm working with, and of course he can plug it into the computer. He's doing research during the games. He's doing research all the time when I'm playing. So I spoke to him, and he told me to play bishop f5. So I opened up the file, spent like 6 minutes looking very quickly at this line, and then I decided to play it in the game to confuse Danil. So I played bishop f5, d3, I go queen d7. Again, the idea here is to play bishop h3, trade off some bishops, but also just keep the bishop in the center, keep an eye on the center, and not commit to creating a pawn chain of 3 here in the center immediately. So queen c2 is played here. I go knight d4, queen d1, knight c6. So I offered Danil a repetition, and now he goes knight e4 instead of repeating it. And this is the other thing that I would add, you guys. It's very important for match strategy. One thing that changed a lot in this match versus the first match that I played against Danil is that in this match, I was consistently exerting a lot of pressure on him in every game with the white pieces. So when you're always under pressure, it'd be like, You know, it'd be like, let's say we're playing tennis, because tennis is the most comparable sport. But in tennis, for example, let's say you're playing Roger Federer. And every game, Roger Federer is just, you know, he's winning every game, you know, at love or at 15. Like, he's not having to really work every time he serves. Then you feel this extra pressure whenever it's your serve. And in chess, it's kind of the same way. Normally, you want to try to win with white and be solid with black. So the fact that Daniil was under pressure every game with the black pieces meant that he felt a lot more pressure with the white pieces. So Daniil goes 94, I play f6. Now I have to create the chain because otherwise I lose the pawn at e5 here. So knight c5, I trade, I go bishop h3. We trade the bishops, and now Daniil goes b4. Very logical move, the point being that if I take the pawn, he has queen b3 with the check, picking up a knight, or at the very least, picking up a bishop and a knight for a rook. Comparing myself to Federer, I'm just using a general example of tennis because tennis is the best comparison. And that's the difference between this match and the first match. In the first match, he was not under pressure every game. That was the difference. Like in this match, every game when I had white, I was putting massive pressure on Daniil in the Sveshnikov or in the Rouse or Sicilian. And when that happens, psychologically, that makes you feel more pressure because you feel extra pressure to try and create something with the white pieces as well. So b4 is played, so I go a6. Again, if white could go b5 and remove this knight from the square, he would win the pawn behind it on c7. So I play a6, a3. So I go queen e6 again. Pretty pragmatic move. Queen here looks nice, but again, you can't attack the king with a lone queen. And when I bring it here, now there are no threats along this diagonal ever again. So Daniil goes knight d2. Thank you to Kaiser Soze, by the way, for the 17 months. Thank you so much. So I go rook d8. Again, centralize the rooks. Everything is harmonious. Daniil goes knight e4. I play knight d5. Maybe I could have played f5 or knight d7 here. I wasn't sure, but for some reason I thought after knight d5 I was just doing fine. And it was only after rook c1 when Daniil has rotated this knight all the way around to this critical square where he's going to hit all these pawns that I realized that there could be some danger. So now I play b6 to prevent knight c5. Daniil goes queen c2. Now I go knight d4. He trades and goes queen c4. And this was I thought, very aggressive and very risky here. Because by trading this bishop for the knight on d4, either white is going to be able to win the pawns here. Or at some point, I'm going to be able to flex and push the knight back and get the knight to c3. And this pawn on e2 is going to collapse, and white's probably going to lose the game. So it's very committal, and I don't like queen c2. I suspect it was not the best move here, if I think about this. But I'll let the computer think. Let's see what it says in a second. Okay, so computers does not like queen c2. It likes like rook e1, e3. There were a lot of moves that I thought were better because once he does this is all-in committal mode. Like either this is going to work great for white and the tactics work, or white's going to end up in trouble. So now I play queen e5, which apparently is a bad move. Apparently I'm not very good at chess because I should have played knight c3. Oh, and I guess I was supposed to play this, and this is a draw. No, but he goes rook. Okay, no, sorry. The computer's smoking crack. Computer, yeah, I was right. Computer's wrong. Knight c3 is equal. Yeah, okay. Computer, you saw that, right? Computer's smoking crack. It said knight c3 was equal, and knight c3 just loses. So I'm better than a computer. Confirmed. So here I go queen e5, which is probably not the best move. Yeah, knight c3 I saw knight c3 takes here, and like rook c2, and he doubles, and I assumed eventually I'm going to lose this passed pawn. So, yeah, I don't know, but it's probably quite bad. So I go queen e5 here, guard this one. Again, I sort of gambit this one on the edge of the board, queen a6. But after queen a6, I thought that here I could play like h6, covering the square, and then I push the knight back and I jump with knight c3. And I thought this was quite reasonable for me. I also have queen h5 to go f5 as well. So I wasn't really sure what's going on, but I thought I was doing well. So Daniil played rook e1, which in retrospect I thought was an extremely tricky move because it's sort of a waiting move, but it's hard to find a move. Like, I don't know, am I going f5? Am I going h6? What am I doing here? And so I went king h8, which in retrospect I was unhappy with, but I think it's important because if I play h6 here, I think white can go knight d2, knight f3, and the problem is he's just going to hit my queen, and if he wins the pawn on d4, this is GG's. I just lose without a fight. So maybe king h8 is okay. I didn't like it during the game, but maybe it's right. Let's see, is it right? Okay, you guys. I'm sorry. King F8 is another stupid thing. I'm sorry. This is like ridiculous. I refuse to look at shots ever again with a computer. King F8. Anybody who's played shots and is better than 1500 knows that this is like the most non-human move you will ever see. This is one of the stupidest things that you will ever see in your life. King F8 is ridiculous. This is just okay. I'm sorry. That's stupid. Let's be serious. King F8. King F8. King F8. King F8 is easy? Yeah, please. King F8 is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Okay, so I go King H8 like a human who uses their brain, not a bunch of stupid little chips. Danil plays queen takes A6. I go rook to A8, hitting the queen on A6. I'm going to collect the pawn on A3 next move. So, he goes queen C4. I take, and now Danil plays F4, which is apparently not a great move. But during the game, when I played King H8, I actually miscalculated this. The line that I saw was Queen A6, Rook A8, Queen B5 takes. And for some reason here I saw F4, Queen E6, and like Rook C6, Queen G8. I thought it was okay. I wasn't sure what was going on, but I thought it was complicated. And somehow I just missed Queen C4, and during the game I was very upset because I realized he could just do the same thing and win the pawn because my queen can no longer guard it. But I was fortunate that even though I was getting low on time, I was a little bit unsure of what was going on. I still kept my head, and I found some good moves. So Queen E6, Queen D4, I go H6. Again, the idea here is to play F5. Depth is really low. Okay, fine. Let's go deeper. Let's go to... How do I... let's go to 24. Let's go to unlimited. Let's keep this at this. Okay. Okay, actually, you know what, you guys? Fun. Let's have some fun. Okay, let's go back. Let's see. What's it say? Let's see. Okay, 17, 18. We're going to let it get to 25. Let's see. 21. It's King H8? No. Or is it King F8? Well, the only thing that's clear here, you guys, is that basically I'm in trouble. Yes, King H8 is right. Hallelujah. King H8 is correct. Okay. King H8. So he takes... Yeah, so we keep going. So now I go Queen E6. Maybe Queen H5 is good. The problem with this game was that I was already getting really low on time. I was down to like 3 minutes. I had to find quick moves. So I went here. He takes a pawn. I play H6, trying to be pragmatic. I really want to remove this knight so I can attack because my rook on A3 is good. My rook and queen are good. But if I go F5 right away, he jumps this way. And so the idea was that by playing H6, I want to go F5, remove the knight, and he has no square because my pawn covers it. So here Danil played B5, which I think was a critical mistake here. As you'll see from the computer, it says knight F2 is good, apparently. Let's see what it says. Yeah, it says knight F2 is good because basically white can now start activating the pawns. His pawn will no longer be a backwards pawn. So knight F2 would have been very dangerous. And I'm kind of happy to see this because during the game, I thought at this point I was in really bad shape. But fortunately, Danil played B5, and now I found the very critical move, rook B3. And now sort of I hit the pawn on B5 with my rook. And not only do I hit the pawn with my rook, but white can't really guard it easily. So let's say white goes Queen C4. Then I go rook B4, hitting the queen and hitting the pawn. And the only way to guard is Queen C6. But after I trade on C6, like rook B2, again I have F5. Again, white's going to have trouble with the pawns. And I also have a passed pawn. I can also reroute my knight as well. So it's very, very tricky for white here. So here Ding plays rook to C6, or sorry, not Ding, sorry, I was reading chat. Danil goes rook to C6, and I go Queen F7, and now Danil realized that he had gone wrong, because the problem here is that I'm hitting the pawn on, B5. Am I dropping frames? I'm still here. I'm hitting the pawn on B5 here, and basically, white can't guard. If white goes Queen C4 now, again, I have rook B4, hitting the queen, hitting the pawn. And once the queen moves, I just eat the pawn on B5, and I'm very happy here with what's going on. And this is very critical to note because I would say at this point, I think I had maybe 2.5 minutes. And I think Danil had maybe 5 minutes at this point. And I think he was very confused because he thought he was much better. And and then he sort of... The moment he lost, like right here, he used a lot of time and he fell behind on the clock. And once he fell behind and played knight c3, I think it was very unlikely that he ever had a chance to come back. So he goes knight c3, trying to exchange pieces, and now I have this very nice move, knight to b4. And if white goes rook c4, I have knight c2. Again, horses do jump, I guess in chess, and literally and figuratively, horses do jump. And I fork the queen, I fork the rook, and after queen f2, I just take, and something like, I don't know, queen h5. Yeah, this is probably just quite easily winning. 2 active rooks, and it's a very, very good position. So I think Danil missed this. I think he thought I would have to trade, and then after takes rook c3, rook b5, white can play like queen c4, and again after queen c4, rook c4, even number of pawns, it should be a pretty routine draw here. But he missed that I had this move knight to b4, which is an all-star move. Now Danil goes queen c4, only move of course to save everything, because as I pointed out, you can't move the rook, and nothing else is free here. So he goes queen c4. So I take, he takes, and now I take the pawn, taking advantage of the pin, and also recovering the 1 pawn that I was down. So he goes rook d1. I think rook a1 was a better move. And after rook a1, knight c5, black is still probably slightly better because I've got this gigantic knight that dominates the white knight. And I can also play against this weak pawn on e2, and I have rook e3 to remove the knight from the defense of the pawn on b5 here. So it's very, very dangerous here, but sorry about the hiccups, you guys. I think it's just too hot in the desert here. So rook a1 maybe is better. Danil plays rook d1, and now I have this very nice move, knight b2, forking the dos rooks. And now he goes rook e4, trying to go for counterplay. And it's worth noting, because after rook to b1, knight takes c4, rook b3, I think after rook to e3, black is probably close to winning because of this pin. White can never move the rooks. I take the rook. He can never move the knight because he loses the rook. So everything is kind of stuck here. My knight guards the rook. So after king f2, I don't know if this is winning for sure, but I can just kind of meander away, and white has to go over, and then at some point I feel like I can just keep running closer. And king c2, I go king f5, and my king is just making a beeline, or maybe not. No, king d6 is better. And there's still some kind of odd geometry, because white can't move the knight, because then I take the pawn. He also can't move the rook, because then I fork the king and the rook. So the rook is like oddly stuck, and the knight is oddly stuck still. So it's still quite bad. How deeply do I calculate? Not super deeply, but I saw that I could move my king, first of all, but then secondly, I thought I also had h5, h4 as well, and something like this. And I don't know if this is winning or not, but it's very, very dangerous, very hard to play, and with very little time on the clock, it's much easier when your moves are instant. Whereas Danil would have to find a lot of moves and basically hope that he's not lost. So that's why Danil, I think, correctly assessed the situation and went rook e4, because with only a minute on the clock, there's no way you can calculate this whole long line with rook b3, rook e3. You know, maybe your king gets over, but it looks really, really gross. So I thought rook e4 from a practical standpoint was the right move. So I take, he checks, I go here, he takes the rook, and now I play f5. Very important move, by the way, because if I play rook takes b5, now he has rook d7, and white's hitting both these juicers because of the pin, like f5, knight f6, king g6, knight e8, and now the black king gets shakmated here by the knight and the rook. So you have to be careful, but again, no need to be hasty, as hobbits would say, and take this pawn on b5. So I play pawn to f5 first, attacking the knight, getting rid of these ideas with the active knight, and again, the pawns cover all these critical jumps. So he goes knight d2, I play rook b5, and now like after rook d7, for example, you'll see knight is not on a square to attack, so I'm doing very well. So he plays rook d7, I play rook c5, e4, I trade. I don't know if this is right. I think here I was probably winning somehow. Yeah, so I trade, I go here, he plays f5. Idea to play f6 here. And he tries to take advantage of the king, so I go king g8, he goes king f2. Now I play knight a4. Again, very conceptual. One thing you try to do at the end of the at the end of the game when both players are low is you try to think conceptually, like, where is my knight going? My rook is good, it guards the pawn. So either I need to push this pawn, try to make a grill, or I need to move the knight somewhere to make it active. And so I thought knight a4 was good because, again, if we swap the knights, I have two connected passed pawns running up the board. So the knight looks really good because I want to remove his knight from the center of the board. So he goes king f3, I go knight c5, he checks, I go here. Now again, to be fair, I don't know if this is actually winning with takes and g4. I couldn't assess this after b5, but from a practical standpoint where both players don't have much time, it's very hard to play this because all my moves are coming instantly. I'm going to have two connected, and you assume it's losing. Maybe it's a draw with correct play, but in a game where both players are low, it's going to be very hard to play like this. So he goes rook d8, he goes knight f2, tries to keep knights on the board. So I go h5. Again, I wanted to stop knight g4 with the fork ideas. I also want to stop him from getting the fast development. So I play h5, and now he goes g4, and I was very mad at myself for doing this because after g4, I think the advantage is almost gone. Maybe not completely, but apparently I can go b5 and b4, and this is winning again. Very icky to allow this because after g6, like king f6, rook f8, king e5, and apparently this is just winning for black, but very tricky. You're kind of worried about like the jumps, the pawn pushes, and maybe it's winning, but very tricky. So I decided to play king e7, and now Danil blundered. Actually, if he'd gone rook d8 here, I probably would have made a draw with the repetition. But Danil, I think, got a little bit careless, feeling the pressure, played rook c8 here because he wanted to try and keep the game going. And one thing that you have to remember is in these games when both players get low on the clock, is you get 10 seconds per move. So it's not a situation where if you're down to 10 seconds here, you're going to be stuck at 10 seconds for the whole game. And I think that's what Danil forgot. He started lacking the objectivity, but he also forgot that I could just play boom, 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 make like 5 quick moves and get back to 1 minute on the clock. So I trade, I go knight d7. Again, the drawback of the rook being here. If the rook was here, I could not retreat the knight. But now my knight is perfect. Stops the check, it's on a great square. And now it also covers this square, so I can just push this baby up the board and make a queen. So he goes rook d8, I go king e7, and now he goes rook g8. Worth noting, by the way, that rook takes knight does not work, because king takes knight e5, king d6 takes, and here, f6, I take, he plays h4. And it's worth noting if I go here, 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 his king is in the box to stop my pawn. Am I here or not? Uh-oh. 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 Are we still here? Sorry, guys. Okay, it must be too hot outside. It must be too hot, because every other day, I drop like 10 frames, and that's it. And that's it. I'm in the desert, you guys. It's just too hot, I think. I think it's just, yeah, I think it's just too hot out here. But this will not be my standard. This will not be standard. So anyway, as I was saying, white's king is inside the box to stop the pawn, but my king is also in the box to stop his pawn. So I go here, h5, I go king here, h6, king f7, h7, king g7, and my king gets back in time to stop his pawn. So, after I go king e7, Danil goes rook g8. Now I find another all-star move, rook to c3 check, and now he has to go back. White would love to bring his king in, but now the problem is I go rook to c4 check, king g5, and I take the knight, king takes rook, and oopsies, I go knight f6 check, forking the king and the rook. So he has to go back, and now after king f2, I can go king f7, rook d8, knight f6, and now the game's pretty much over. I've got the knight anchored on f6 because after check king e7, knight anchors, it prevents this, but it also can jump in the center, and now I'm just going to start moving my rook, collect this pawn, or start pushing the 2 pawns up the board. And once I got to this position, after knight e5, king e7, I knew that I was going to win the game. So he goes rook a8, I play knight e4 check, king e2, king f6, double attacking the knight and the pawn. Goes knight g4, I take, knight e3, I go back. Again, no point letting myself get in danger. When's the stream from Santa Monica? Probably Thursday. Today's Tuesday, right? Either it's gonna be tomorrow evening, or it's gonna be on Thursday morning. One of the two. I don't know which one it will be. But I will say when I was there yesterday testing the internet, I was not seeing drop frames at all. Connection looked really steady. So I'm pretty confident it'll be good. So I go king g6, no nonsense. Don't let this knight fork me. I go rook c5, king f5, check, and king e3. This I was kind of mad at myself after the game because I played knight f6 when I could have just gone rook takes h2. Because after rook f8, knight f6, I'm just up 3 pawns and easily winning the game here. So I was a little bit mad that I played knight f6, although apparently it's the best move. Wow, apparently it's the best. No, it's not. It is the best move, huh? So he plays h3, I go rook c4. Again, I have 2 extra pawns, 3v1. Also, I've got a great knight in the center of the board that's going to guard everything. So here he plays rook c8, I check, and now I go rook d4. And here Danil resigned in lieu of the fact that okay, so what I'm going to say is at this point Danil resigned, and he resigned in view of the fact that basically I'm up 2 pawns here. I'm up 2 pawns, going to move the knight. I can push the pawns on the queen side, and at this point, close apps, I have nothing open, you guys. It's just the internet's dying on me. Anyway, PC is probably a little bit too hot. That's very possible, too. Anyway, alright, so yeah, so Danil resigned here, down 2 pawns, and I won this game. And this gave me the lead in the match, 2-1. So my CPU is throttling. Okay, my CPU is throttling. Okay. All right. Okay. So this meant that. How do I turn it off? Let me see. How do I turn it off? Okay. All right. So I won this game and I went up 2-1. So all right, let's keep going. I'm not gonna have the engine running. So okay. So anyway, Danil resigned here. This gave me a 2-1 lead as we move on to the 4th and final game, which I played with the white piece. So again, up 2-1. Same situation I was in yesterday against Danil, or not yesterday. Sorry, the first match as well. So I played e4. Danil goes c5. So e4, c5. So I play knight f3, d6. We play the same thing. I go bishop g5 here, and we play the rouser. As expected, same line, king b1, bishop e7, f3, h4, b5. Same as game 2, a5, and I play c4. Sorry, you guys, I'm not gonna run the engine because that's probably gonna mess it up. Have I considered liquid cooling in your PC? This is my laptop. This is not what I usually stream on. So yeah, so a5 is what we played in the second game, and I played c4. Again, important to note, I haven't turned it off. I think it's off. It's still running. Okay. All right. So I turned it down. Maybe that'll make it better. Okay. All right. So anyway, so I play c4 here. Again, as I was saying before, you guys, one thing that you want to do in between these matches is you need to focus on coming up with ideas. And after my second game against Anil Dubov, which I played earlier in the match, I did talk to my trainer, and he mentioned that, you know, maybe there was this idea with c4 that's very interesting. So he mentioned this to me right after the second game finish, and so when I was playing the third game, he was looking at the opening, but he basically was preparing and looking at variations that I could play with white in the 4th game. And that, of course, is why you have trainers who work with you and help you. Trainer equals trainer or second, whatever you want to call them. I'm saying trainer to be like more hip and with the times. But technically, if we're talking about chess, what you call them, what you call someone who helps you call them a second. As I've been through before, because chess is such an old game, we don't use modern terms. We use terms like seconds because of course if you are Aaron Burr or Alexander Hamilton and you decide you're gonna have your good old fashioned gun duel, you have to have someone who's your second in case you chicken out and you run away. So that's why in chess we technically call the people who help us seconds, but I'm saying trainer for you guys as well so that you understand what I'm saying. Okay. So I play c4 here. Chris mentioned this. I looked at this for a couple of minutes in between the 3rd and 4th game. Again, I was up in the match, and I like the idea because the point is after c4, if black takes knight c3 and plays like rook to b8, I can now play a4 and plant something. So even though my king looks very open on the a file after castles bishop b5, this is not really an open file, and I can use my open file and attack everything in the center of the board. So that's why I played c4. Now here, Danil played h6, so I take the knight. He takes with the bishop. He could have taken with the pawn, maybe, but I think after pawn takes knight d4, again, white should be doing really well. Really very little queenside attacks here. I can always close the queenside, and I can put the knight here, and his king is really I'm really asking where his king is going, because he doesn't want to go to the left, and he definitely doesn't want to go to the right, because he'll hang the pawn on h6. So he plays bishop f6, so I play queen d6. Plays queen a7, I go e5, bishop e7, and now I go queen d4. By the way, doesn't having more sides give you an unfair advantage? Not necessarily, because they can't all give you input in that moment. And what I would say as well, in general terms, is that Chris has also been very helpful. There also are over-the-board tournaments. So when you're playing over-the-board tournaments, like let's just say you're playing the World Blitz and Rapid in Moscow, in between games, he might have like 2 seconds to check the computer, but he'll be accessing computers remotely and looking at ideas and just mention a couple of moves randomly. So so it's not as like random as just you're at home preparing. And it does help when you have that interaction. So Queen D4, Queen C7. Play Queen F4 here. Again, I want to do a Knight G3, but after Bishop A4, it's a little bit annoying because I can't go B3 because then after Rook D8, I'm going to lose some material here with the Queen on D4 and the Rook on D1. So I go Queen F4 here. Again, sidestep, so Bishop A4, I can just move my Rook out of the way and there's none of this nonsense anymore. Castles, I go Knight D4. Goes pawn to A4, and now I go Queen E4. Critical move again. Black's trying to attack, but this is why C4 is such a powerful move, because if Black ever pushes, you'll see that I just close the pawns. There's no attack. If he goes B3, I close it this way. Again, no attack. And so that's why this move C4 was so strong in the opening, because basically it offset any of these queenside attacks with the pawns, because Black can never create an open lane. So that was kind of the concept behind this brilliant move, is that Black can never create a lane here on the B file or the A file. Whereas, for example, the pawns here, let me just make some random moves so you see the point. After B3, something is getting opened up here. One of these lines is getting opened. So that's why this move C4 was so strong in the game, because conceptually, when we reach this position, you'll see that Black can't really create a lane. Whichever pawn he pushes, I push the other one, and the whole thing gets locked up and closed. So now he goes F5. Again, Queen E4 is strong, so I want to line up the battery and make a checkmate towards the king. So I go here, which is actually a mistake, by the way. I could have just gone knight takes pawn. And after bishop takes knight, queen takes knight, king H8, I think simply bishop D3. Same idea to line up the checkmate, and it should just be easily winning for white. So I played bishop D3, not the best move. I thought I had a force mate. Why not queen takes C4? It's a bad move. I'm not going to run the engine because then maybe I'll end up, my whole computer will start, my whole computer will freeze up and lose its mind. So I'm not going to do that right now. So rook E8, I go G4. Now G4 is probably wrong. I think queen H7, king F8, and something is winning here maybe. Let me see what it says. I'm gonna look for 1 second. Okay, wait, G4 is right? Well, depth 14, G4 is right. I don't know if that means G4 is right, but it's a move. So I did go G4, Queen C5, retreat the bishop. I have to guard the knight, of course, here. Rook D8, I go G5 again. Allez. If I don't attack, at some point Black is going to create a lot of threats here. So when your kings are castled on the opposite sides, you really need to attack. Depth 14 is kind of low, yeah, but I mean, as I said, I'm having some issues with the connection, so I'm just going to go through the game. So why not bishop c2? Because if I go bishop c2 black and play pawn to b3, and after pawn takes, now all the lines open up here. Like if I go knight b3, I thought there was rook a1. No, wait, what? I don't know. Anyway, the point is that if I take with the knight, there's all kinds of danger, like queen b4, rook b8, rook a1. And it's really, really ugly here. Really dangerous. It's not +5, but anyway, the point is that basically I don't want to give him counterplay or something that's messy, because again, what's important is you don't want to lose the game. It's a game where a draw is fine. I just can't lose. There's only one result that's bad. So even if objectively they're better moves, you don't want to let the game get out of control, because you don't want a game where if you blunder, you lose, where if you play right, you win, but if you blunder, you lose. So that's why I went this way. Rook d8, now I go g5. I rip open, I give up a pawn, but I rip open the protection around the black king. Takes, I go f4, goes queen g3. And now here at this point, I'm sure it's winning, but I saw that there was an easy way to make a draw, which was rook d3, queen f2, and just rook f1, queen h2, rook h1, and black has nothing better than to repeat. If he goes here, I do the same thing. Really, there's no coverage. There are no empty squares for the black king for the black queen to go to. So is c4 known or a new idea? I think it's a new idea. As I said, my second came up with it in between the second and third games. He looked at it very briefly, and yeah, it was good. So it worked out. So anyway, we repeat the moves, and by repeating the moves and making a draw, Leko said he's played it before, IRC. Okay, well, I don't know. I mean, I have no idea, but I just know I looked at it for 5 minutes. It looked good, and I just played it. It worked out, made the draw, won the match 2.5, 1.5. And by winning the match 2.5, 1.5, that means I win the match against Anil Dubov 3-0, get the clean sweep, and I have 2 days off tomorrow and the day after that. Show you guys what happens after queen takes c4. Okay, if queen c4, I think I go knight d4. Discovery attack on the queen. If he goes like queen c7, I go knight b5 here. Hit the pawn, hit the queen. If he takes and goes king f8, I go rook c1. Passive king, passive rook, open line. Rook coming to the center, passive everything. White is just winning. So that's why black does not take the pawn on c4, you guys. So anyway, I do draw this game, and by drawing this game, winning the match 3-0, I move on to the finals where I'll play Magnus Carlsen starting on Friday. It'll be the same time, 10 a.m. Eastern as always. So that will be my next match. In the meantime, since I said I would do this the other day, I didn't have a chance.